Folks. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam, ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa wala, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri, wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli, Allahumma rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to the Zakat workshop here. This is going to be a little involved. I'll try to be as succinct while being detailed as possible. What I'll do is I'll share the opinions regarding zakat that are majority opinions, and we'll follow this book as our guide for today. This book has been put together by the National Zakat Foundation. Anybody heard of the National Zakat Foundation? A few. How many people? Just show your hands. One person. Okay. So National Zakat Foundation is a local charity, and they do zakat distribution local. Yeah, so it's a very good initiative to give zakat locally. That's their mandate. We will follow what they are, what they have outlined, but there's some things that they say here that I will override. Okay, so just for an FYI. All right, let us begin with firstly looking at zakat, the definition of zakat. Okay. Zakat, this is the, you all have this here with you, alhamdulillah, the zakat guide. Yes. So, zakat linguistically is associated with purification and growth, right? They say in the books that لغة it is النماء والزيادة. يقال زكى الزرع إذا نما وزاد. So, it is to grow. It is to become more. In some aspects, the way zakat is used in the Quran, it carries the meaning of purification. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. Okay, that the origin of that word tazakka is from the same root as zakat, to purify. Okay, so it has the additional meaning of purification as well. What is the link between the linguistic meaning and the actual applied meaning? The link is that when a person gives zakat, they are purifying themselves. خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ. This is the ayah in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet ﷺ, take the zakat of the people. Okay? Why? There's a reason that's provided. Of course you can take this. تطهرهم, to purify them, وتزكيهم بها, to purify them again, وصلي عليهم, and pray for them, O Prophet. Okay, the two types of purifications that are mentioned here, تطهرهم, that tathir, that purification is of the money. The money that we give is zakat, purifies the money that remains with us. Okay, it's a means of purification. وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. The other purification is purification of the soul. When we give zakat, it purifies our soul. Right? It opens up our heart. We're able to give more. We're able to feel more connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the idea of zakat. When a person gives it, the wealth grows, does not decrease. The purification of the soul happens. The purification of the body, of the material wealth happens. In every way, it's a very beautiful thing. It is, of course, one of the acts of worship that is mandatory in Islam. This is a pillar of our worship. The 5 pillars of Islam, zakat is one of the pillars. The idea of the pillar being that if the pillar is removed from a structure, the structure will collapse. Okay? Think about it like if there's a room, there's furniture in the room, and there is the load-bearing walls of the room. Okay? The furniture can be moved around, can be there, can be replaced, but the load-bearing wall has to be there always. Otherwise, the structure will collapse. Zakat is one of those load-bearing walls of our identity as a Muslim. If it's not there, the whole identity essentially collapses. Same thing with prayer, same thing with fasting, same thing with Hajj. Okay? That is what zakat is. Moving on to some of the benefits of zakat, we spoke about one briefly, which is to purify. something that's interesting here that's mentioned, that zakat is mentioned 32 times in the Quran, and it's 30 times has been linked with salah. 30 times that mention of zakat is linked with salah, which tells you again that these two pillars are very close. And if you think about the overall objective of the Sharia, the salah is a purification that's personal, right? It's between me and my Lord, and the zakat is me contributing to society. Okay, and then linked together tells us the Sharia is you practice it. It's a personal thing. I practice it for myself. It's between me and my Lord. But also the benefit of it has to extend to people outside of the mosque as well. Okay, and that's why the linkage between the two is so profound. All right. The zakat has been made obligatory by many evidences. It is by consensus a mandatory act. A benefit or a virtue of zakat that's listed here that's very nice is the example of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is like a seed of grain or corn which grows 7 spikes, and each spike is 100 grains, and Allah multiplies His reward for whom He wills. Allah is all-encompassing and all-knowing. The idea is that a person spends $1, the reward of it is like $700 in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Wallahu yudha'ifu liman yasha. Allah can increase a person even beyond that. So this is a very beautiful virtue of zakat. Okay, just some words here. Okay, some words that we should be familiar with. We have the word zakat. That's what we're talking about. Okay, zakat is 2.5% of the net assets that a person has after the year has passed. Okay? After the lunar year has passed. That's what zakat is. So if I have $1,000 and that $1,000 sits with me for a whole year, then my zakat is how much on that? $25. That's what zakat is. Alright? So I will give $25 on that 1,000. Next year, instead of 1,000, I have 1,000 minus 25. I have 975 left. That sits with me for another year. How much is zakat on this? Times about $24.37, and so on and so forth. So that's what the idea of zakat is. It is on the net assets. It's not on income. It's not taxes. It's on your net assets. And it's 2.5% of that after the lunar year has passed. Now, this is an important one. The lunar year has to pass. It's not by the Gregorian calendar. All right. There's another word that is very frequently used in the Quran, which is sadaqah. Right? What is sadaqah? Sorry, just one second. Yeah. Sadaqah is any type of charity. Any type of charity. Zakat is specifically this 2.5% on your net assets after the lunar year has passed. That is zakat specifically. Sadaqah is anything you give for the sake of Allah. Okay? Those are some of the words you should be familiar with. There's another word that we will see, which is the nisab. The nisab is the minimum amount of money you must have before you pay zakat. Okay? That's what the nisab is. 3 important terms for us right now. Zakat, obligatory, pillar, 2.5%, once a year. Okay? Sadaqah, completely optional. Do as much as you want. You want to give $100, you want to give $0, it's all the same. It is completely and totally optional. Not useful for a fundraiser, huh? Just a distinction. But it's totally optional. Nisab is the minimum amount of dollars you must have before you pay zakat. Question, Tarek, please.
No, my comment was that was a little scary example you gave. That tells us, oh, we pay zakat, we are 975. Maybe next year we have 1,500 and we calculate that.
Of course. Of course. No, just the idea of the amount. That's all I was trying to get at. Okay? Now, let us proceed from the zakat to who pays zakat. This is an important qualifier. Okay. They say here. Let me find, yeah, this one. Okay. Who pays zakat? It says in the book that you have, page number 4, that those who are required to pay zakat must be adult, Muslim, and of sane, or person who is sane, person of sound mind, not mentally ill or insane. Please note the scholars of the 3 schools of thought, other than those of Hanafi, state that zakat should be paid on qualifying wealth owned by children and those of not of sound mind. Okay, so herein they mention a very interesting distinction. They mention the distinction about who pays zakat. Okay, so let us work our way from the very top. Anybody who's a Muslim says, I'm a Muslim, okay, zakat becomes mandatory upon them. The next qualifier is, are you old enough? Okay, are you old enough? The next, and old enough in Islam is puberty. The next qualifier is, are you a person who is liable for the actions of the Sharia? What does that mean? That Allah will hold you accountable for what you have done and what you haven't done. That is a person who has to have, who has to be of sane mind. Any person who is, whose mental condition or physical health makes it prohibitive for them to practice Islam is exempt from the rulings of the Sharia. I'll give you an example. If somebody is severely autistic, I actually had this case with a young man who was going to Umrah with me, severely autistic to the point where he couldn't even read, and he's in his 20s, and his parents take care of him. Very difficult situation. The parents were very worried. How can we make sure that he keeps his ihram on the whole time? That's what their concern was. I said to them, you don't have to worry about any of his ihram or anything. This is a person who is exempt from the responsibilities of the Sharia, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given him the tools to be able to bear that responsibility. And if Allah doesn't give the tools to bear the responsibility, then the responsibility is lifted. La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah only burdens a soul to their capacity, and this is beyond their capacity. Okay, so this is the opinion of this is the position of the school of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. There are other scholars, like mentioned here, the other 3 schools of thought, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad rahimahumullah. They believe that even if a person is not an adult, and even if they're not of sane mind, zakat has to be paid. Okay, and here is the important reason why. The reason is, a person who is not an adult, a child, when does a child have money or enough money to pay zakat? Inheritance, in fact, right? The answer is inheritance. When the child has inheritance, that's when he has or she has enough money to pay zakat. That's when it's due. Now, when the child gets their inheritance, is there a guardian for the child? Right? There's a guardian who is protecting the wealth of the child, protecting the interests of the child, ideally, of course. That guardian now becomes responsible for paying zakat on that wealth. It becomes a responsibility of the guardian to pay zakat on that wealth, not the child, because the child is a child, not responsible for the actions of the Sharia. Likewise, a person who is not of sane mind, is there a guardian for them in the Sharia and also legally? Yes, there's somebody who is taking care of them. So any assets that this person may have, may be probably acquired through inheritance, again has the liability of paying zakat on it. What is the evidence that the other schools use? The evidence is, the Prophet ﷺ said, أَلَا مَنْ وَلِيَ يَتِيمًا لَهُ مَالٌ فَلْيَتَّجِرْ فِيهِ حَتَّى لَا تَأْكُلَهُ الصَّدَقَةِ. This is Sahih Bukhari. The Prophet ﷺ said that a person who is now the guardian of a orphan, okay, guardian of a orphan. This orphan has money. The person who is a guardian should invest that money. فَلْيَتَّجِرْ فِيهِ. Must invest that money. Why? حَتَّى لَا تَأْكُلَهُ الصَّدَقَةِ. Lest zakat eats it up. Lest zakat eats it up. Like I showed you in the example, right? If I have $1,000 sitting, next year will be 25 less. The next year after that will be 23 and change less, and so on and so forth. So if this child is an infant when they inherited their wealth, by the time they become an adult, maybe 10 years later, maybe a quarter of their wealth is gone if it's just sitting there. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ is giving this very clear instruction to the guardian, not the child. The child is a child. To the guardian, you must invest it so that the zakat does not consume the inheritance of this child. So from this we get obviously the idea that the guardian is liable for taking care of the wealth. And subhanallah, we get this idea also that how important it is to not let money stay stagnant. One of the goals of zakat is money doesn't remain stagnant in one place. You don't park your cash in a place and that's it. It always, when you, as you'll see, if you have invested your money of zakat in something that is earning a return, then the zakat is due on the returns, not on the investment. If I bought a house for rental purposes and the house is $1 million, my zakat is not on the $1 million, that's the value of the house. My zakat is on the rental income that I'm earning. Okay, we'll get to that in the details. The point being, the cash keeps moving through the hands of the people, so it stimulates the economy. SubhanAllah, it's a very beautiful thing, and the Prophet ﷺ is telling the guardian, don't let it sit, invest it, and he's telling people this is how things should be done. So that's where the difference arises. In my opinion, if you are a guardian of an orphan child, you should pay zakat for that orphan child, the wealth that they have. And you should ensure that that money is invested in a good Sharia compliant, safe investment, so it continues to grow and at least outpaces the zakat and inflation. Zakat is 2.5%, inflation is 1 point something. At least it's got to grow by 4%, right? You got to beat those two figures together. All right? That is who pays. Now, when it comes to zakatable wealth, now here's the person, now the money that they have to give zakat on. Here are the conditions of that zakatable wealth. Complete ownership of wealth. This is important. Keep this one in mind. You have to have complete ownership of wealth. Number 2, free of haram income. Zakat is not due upon earnings that are haram. Rather, one should dispose of that amount by giving it in charity and seek forgiveness from Allah. Okay? If a person has money that they are earning from haram, they're supposed to separate that money from their actual earnings, from their zakatable earnings, because the haram is aslan not accepted. Inna Allaha tayyibun la yaqbalu illa tayyiba. Allah is pure and He only accepts pure. Okay, and that money, it shouldn't be actually within the person. They should try to get rid of it as soon as possible. Okay, meets the nisab. What was nisab again? Nisab is minimum amount of dollars you need to have before you pay zakat. All right. The minimum amount of nisab is, it says 20 dirhams, 20 dinars or 85 grams for gold, and 200 dirhams or 595 grams of what? Of silver. Okay. يجب في الذهب إذا بلغ 20 مثقالا وفي الفضة إذا بلغت 200 درهم. Okay. ربع العشر منهما. This is what the text says. That's what they're saying there as well. Okay. Now, let us do a comparison. Back then and now. You know, if you watch Jeopardy, before and after. Right? Okay. So, back then, zakat, back in the time of pre-industrialization. Okay? Before the Industrial Revolution. Back then, zakat was calculated on each asset class separately. What does that mean? You would have, for example, in the books of fiqh, a chapter on zakat, babu zakati bahimatil an'am, zakat given on cattle. You would have a chapter on zakat fi, faslun fi zakat al-baqar. In the cattle, how much zakat are you supposed to give for cows? And how much zakat are you supposed to give for sheep? How much zakat are you supposed to give for camels? Every single asset class will have a different zakat. One of those asset classes was gold and silver. Gold and silver. Okay? By the way, the 2.5% that we have today, the one that we say you pay 2.5%, it comes from gold and silver. The zakat for a person who is a farmer is different. Zakat for a farmer is different. Zakat for a farmer is 10% if if the irrigation is through rainwater, naturally irrigated. It's 5% if you are artificially irrigating it. Okay? It's different asset classes. Today, zakat is calculated, it's not zakat, zakat is calculated on your what? Net asset. Your net assets, your net worth, let's just put net worth of zakatable money. And it's assigned a dollar value. Your net worth, remove things from it that are not zakatable. We'll come to that. What is exempt from zakat? You don't pay zakat on your car. Okay? You don't pay zakat on your cell phone. Okay? So exclude that stuff. You don't pay zakat in the home that you live in. No zakat in that. Exclude all that. Subtract expenses. Subtract things such as loans that you're paying back. Okay? Etc. etc. At the end, you get a figure that's your net worth of zakatable money, and you assign a dollar value to that, and then you pay 2.5% on that. Back then, zakat was calculated on each asset class. This is where, why am I telling you this? This is where the difference comes of the nisab. Okay, they would have a different nisab, a different minimum for each asset class. Okay, I'll show you a chart. Okay, here is the zakat of cows, right? If you have 30 cows, then you give this much. This is a special type of cow called tabir, right? Small little calf. Okay, 40 cows, you give musinna, right? This is 2-year-old cow, etc., etc. If you have less than 30 cows, no zakat. Right? So they would have tables. This is actually, the Prophet ﷺ would give this rulings, the Sahaba would write this, and then this was mailed, like the Sahaba would write this as letters to like the different rulers in the Muslim world. That's where we get the tables from, actually. It's from the letters of the Sahaba that were written to the different Muslim rulers, and the Sahaba were taught this by the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet, instructed them that when you have 30, you give this. When you have 40, you give this. Literally, line by line, he instructed them to give zakat and all that. That's how it was back in the day. Now, we are struck with a situation, we don't have gold or silver that we value ourselves by. We value ourselves by dollars, right? Or money, fiat currency. So now, what is the nisab? That's the question. The nisab for 85 grams of gold, the value of 85 grams of gold is approximately $3,000 today, spot value. Okay? The value of 600 grams or 595 grams of silver is approximately $300. Okay? So you have two figures. The scholars of today then say, what you must do is if you exceed the minimum amount of the nisab of the silver, the lower amount, you must pay zakat. So if your net at the end of everything, your net assets are at the end of the day worth more than $300, you end up paying zakat. Okay. Now, I would even say, you could even take the gold nisab and it's fine. You can take either of them, it's okay. But I'm trying to tell you why the difference is there first. Understand that because back in the time, we were using each asset class separately, but today we're trying to combine everything. And that's where the difference arises. Back then, you would say, one lunar year has passed over the wealth before you give zakat. Remember I said that, right? 1 year has passed. 1 lunar year has passed. Okay? So I'm a farmer. I harvest my crops in the spring. I sell them, and I make my money right there. And that's my year's money. And then I spend it as I make sure that I'm not overextending myself. but I know exactly when I got my money, right? Yes or no? So you could actually very easily for every asset class track, this has been here for a year, this has not been here for a year. I got these cows, 2 years ago, I just bought this cow yesterday. You could actually track it fairly comfortably. Yes or no? Today, how do salaries work? How does income work? Income is generally bi-weekly, right? Bi-weekly, you get Canada Child Tax Benefit. Every month you get this, you get that. Generally speaking, we have bi-weekly or monthly income that comes. It makes it very difficult to track every dollar, the extent that's been there with you. Do you see the problem? Right? My dad actually does it. He has a spreadsheet, or he used to have a spreadsheet, now he's retired, mashallah. And he would track like all of his income, mashallah, and he has a background in physics, like he did his undergrad in physics, so mashallah, he loves doing that stuff. But I wouldn't recommend that for most people, right? I was presenting this to an LMM, and we had a professor of computer science. He's like, we can actually do this, we can calculate all of this, and we can take some curve, and the curve will give you, I was like, Dr. Mahmoud, you can do that, man. The rest of us can't do this. The point being, it is very difficult to now know exactly how much money you've held for an extended period of time. So now we split our wealth in two ways. Money that is or income, money that is coming on a schedule, right? Coming at a schedule. And you have money that is lump sum. Okay, I sold a car, I now have $20,000 that I just got in my hands. Lump sum. Scheduled money, every 20th of the month I get, child tax benefit. Every 30th of the month I get my paycheck, so on and so forth. Do you see the difference between the two? Money that is scheduled, what we would do is at the end of lunar year, pay zakat. Okay, what does that mean? So the lunar year is Muharram, and so on and so forth, right? Muharram, Safar, Awwal, Rabi' Thani, Jum'ah. I'm trying to remember the song I learned as a kid, right? So that is the lunar calendar. Say I will pay zakat in Ramadan. Ramadan is the month I pay zakat in. I don't even know when Rajab is, okay? I know what Ramadan is though. And I will pay zakat on 1st of Ramadan. Okay? So on 1st of Ramadan, I do my calculation. I'll share this sheet with you. You can actually do this, inshallah. This is actually my personal spreadsheet. I was just deleting some of the values, inshallah. But I'll give you the sheet, and you can use this, inshallah, for your personal calculations. I do my calculation, and I come to the very end of my amount. I say, Ramadan 1st, I am due this much zakat, and I pay that zakat. Even though maybe 2 days ago I received a paycheck. Maybe a week ago I received the child tax benefit payment. You see, the scheduled payments are coming in on a schedule. But because it is so difficult to track where the money is coming, specifically each type of money, I will just, on the first day I have to give zakat, 1st of Ramadan, I will calculate everything and say, this is my net value of zakatable goods, and I will give money on zakat on that. My lump sum, what will I do with lump sum? Any ideas? I'll track it separately for a year. I'll track it separately for a year. So, 1st of Ramadan comes. A week before Ramadan, I sold my house. And now I have an extra 150k in my bank account. Should I give zakat on that 1 week after?
No.
That's not fair, right? We have to be, we're trying to be safe, trying to make sure we give our zakat, but also fair according to the letter of the law, right? This is what the Sharia allows us. So I will say this lump sum I actually got on this day. So I'm going to track that separately. Okay? The scheduled money, I'm not going to track it. Comes and goes, it's too difficult. So I'm just going to, on Ramadan was number 1 or first of Ramadan, take my net and give zakat on it. Lump sum, I will separate it. And I will say, you know what, I got this on the, the 15th of Shawwal, for example. So I have to remember the next Shawwal, if that money is still with me, I pay zakat on it. Okay, so actually I should have said 15th of Sha'ban. Sha'ban is the one before, right? I got that money just before Ramadan. I will track it and then give the money afterwards. So this is back then versus now. This is the recommendation. This is the fatwa from AMJA, the Association of Muslim Jurists of America. This is the standard position that everybody advocates. Okay? If you are again have the capability of tracking your wealth to the level of, that very fine detail, more power to you, alhamdulillah. But in reality, money that is scheduled should be calculated at the end and given zakat. Okay? We will go through like what zakat is on, right? Don't worry, we'll get to that. And then this spreadsheet will make it easy for you. It will be like a nice review, inshallah, at the end. Alright? Don't you worry. That's what zakatable wealth is. Alright? Summary of it. I have money. I'm a Muslim. I am sane. Alhamdulillah. I'm an adult. And even following the other opinions, maybe I am a guardian of some child. Okay? I have money that is in my ownership. It's mine. I can get it. I can access it. I have money that is halal. It is above the nisab. It is above $300 after I've done all my calculations. And this is scheduled money that I get. This is my salary. This is my scheduled income. First of Ramadan, I give my zakat. Okay? Lump sum, I sold my car, I'll track that separately. Sold my house, I'll track that separately. Maybe there was like some investments I had and I sold those investments and I got the transfer in my bank account. I'll track that separately. Okay? Whatever that is, I can do that, but first of Ramadan, I calculate my zakat. By the way, when I say I give my zakat the first of Ramadan, as we'll see, you don't have to give all of your zakat right away. Okay? You have to calculate it and know how much is due. And then you can give it on a schedule. You can give zakat before. You can actually give zakat before the year is up. That's why I have this line here that says zakat already paid. Because maybe like in the middle of the Islamic year you find a worthy cause or a person and you're like, this is a deserving person and I know I'm going to be paying zakat in Ramadan. So I'll just give them zakat right now. And I'll calculate everything later. Okay? So all those things will come to. But right now, just for the sake of simplicity, this is what zakat is in the very, very basic, in a very top-down view. Okay, that is what we are currently at. Now, let us look at who receives zakat. This is important. Okay, we will not spend too much time on this because this is a very detailed topic, but we will, inshallah, spend a little bit of time on it, inshallah. Okay. Firstly, there is like categories of people who are zakat, and then there is people. Categories are: here is a poor person, there is a needy person, there is a person who's employed to administer zakat, people whose heart to be reconciled, etc., etc. We'll explain what these categories are. And then there's people. Maybe your brother is a poor person. Maybe your father is the one who's employed to administer zakat. Okay, so we'll talk about it from both angles, inshallah. Okay. Firstly, let's talk about the categories. The categories are mentioned in ayah number 60 of Surah At-Tawbah. Ayah number 60. It says in ayah number 60, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ وَالْغَارِمِينَ وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ فَرِيضَةً مِنَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ حَكِيمٌ. Okay, it's a very beautiful ayah. Specifies the 8 categories of zakat. There is no 9th. There is no ninth category. There are 8 categories that Allah has specified, and that's it. Within the categories, there's some scope. Okay, I'll also try to bring some like modern day flavor to this. Okay, inshallah, as we go through it. The poor. First category is al-fuqara, the poor. Faqir is what is poor here. The next one is masakin, miskin, the needy. What's the difference in English? Hard to tell. What's the difference in Arabic or in the Sharia? Here's the difference. Al-faqir, he says, or al-fuqara, hum ashaddu hajatam min al-miskin, or min al-masakin, لأن الله بدأ بهم وإنما يبدأ بالأهم فالأهم. This is a book from the school of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and they give the legal explanations of every aspect of our worship. So the explanation given is the faqir, the poor person, is someone who is in more need. How do we know this person is more needy than the miskin? Who's the miskin here? Needy. Faqir is the poor. Category 1 is faqir. Category 2 is miskin. Okay? They say because Allah said, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began with fuqara, right? So they are in more need than the miskin. That's one line of reasoning. And they also say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about miskin in the Quran and other parts. In Surah Kahf he speaks about the miskin. وَأَمَّا السَّفِينَةُ فَكَانَتْ لِمَسَاكِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ فِي الْبَحْرِ. The ship that Khidr wrecked radiallahu anhu, with Musa alayhi salam, belonged to masakin, needy people. Okay, these people had a ship, they had a job, maybe they owned the ship, maybe they were collectively part of it, maybe they were renting the ship. Irrespective, they had something and they had an occupation. So that is a person who's a little bit better than somebody who has nothing, right? So they make that distinction based on the ordering and also based on other ayat of the Quran. Now, who is exactly the poor person? Who is the faqir? Okay, they say, فَهُمْ مَنْ لَا يَجِدُونَ شَيْئًا مِنَ الْكِفَايَةِ أَوْ يَجِدُونَ بَعْضَ الْكِفَايَةِ أَيْ دُونَ نِصْفِهَا. It is somebody who has nothing. Kifaya is the money needed to fulfill your needs. Okay, has nothing to fulfill his needs. Not desires, needs. Okay, has nothing to fulfill his needs. Or has less than 50%. Less than how much? 50%. Okay,
50% of what?
of their needs. I need $100 a week to survive. I have $49. That makes me a faqir, right? That makes a person a faqir. Miskeen, on the other hand, is somebody who is يَجِدُونَ أَكْثَرَهَا أَوْ نِصْفَهَا. Okay? This is a person who has from 50% to 100%. That is a miskeen. Interesting definition. That somebody who has enough to just make ends meet is considered to be a what? Miskeen. And is considered to be zakat eligible in the Sharia. Okay? And in fact, I would argue this category is actually one of the best categories to give zakat in. Because here is a person who is trying their best to make ends meet. And they're working hard. But, situation is tough, and you give them zakat, and that's like a relief for them. Okay? That's like a amazing support for them. Okay? This is the two main categories. These are the two most important ones for zakat. The people who have nothing to fulfill their needs to like 50%, and people who have 50% to just like even breaking even of their needs. Literally, money comes in, money goes out, and they have nothing left, or very little left. That is what there is. Imam Ahmad says, فَيُعْطَى الصِّنْفَانِ تَمَامَ كِفَايَتِهِمَا مَعَ عَائِلَتِهِمَا سَنَةً. Wow. He says, both of these categories of people are given enough money to fulfill their needs for themselves and their families for the whole year. Subhanallah. That's what zakat back then was supposed to be. When the system of zakat was in place, when when the Sharia was implemented, The idea was that a poor person will come and say, I need zakat. Who are you? Well, I'm a miskeen because I have this, but I don't have that. They will say, okay, you know what? Here is money for you and your family. That will be enough for you for the whole year. For the whole year. And maybe they probably were given in like payments, right? Not all of it right once. And that person now is no longer a miskeen. You literally eradicate poverty that way. Literally. It was an amazing system, subhanAllah, that the Sharia had left us with. So that is the poor and the needy. Number 3 is those employed to administer zakat, وَالْعَامِلُونَ عَلَيْهَا. Number 4 is those whose hearts are to be reconciled. These are people who are new Muslims. They are new Muslims, or it's expected that they will become Muslim if they receive some sadaqah. Now you might think this is bribing them to become Muslims. That's not the idea. The idea is this person has something in their heart. They're like, I don't like this change. I don't like this guy. I don't like what I hear on the news. But then they see generosity. They see something good, and that good completely overwhelms them. The Prophet ﷺ used to give a lot of zakat to new Muslims, and to the point where the Ansar amongst them were like, what's going on here? We sacrifice so much, we get nothing. And these new Muslims who did nothing and all they did was fight the Prophet ﷺ, and they come and say inappropriate things to the Prophet ﷺ, are getting this massive zakat payments to themselves. And the Prophet heard about it and he said, Ya Mashal al-Ansar, he explained the reasoning. These are new Muslims. I try to bring them closer to Islam. And you, O Ansar, are the people, you are my people. لو سلك الناس طريقا وسلك الأنصار طريقا لسلكت طريق الأنصار أو كما قال رسول الله. If people go this way and the Ansar go that way, I'll go the way of the Ansar. And he made dua for the Ansar, and it was a very beautiful moment for them. But the point being, the Prophet ﷺ used to do this to encourage Muslims, especially those who had some like enmity towards Islam. And this was a thing that the Prophet ﷺ would do from zakat. War-riqab, slavery, those in slavery. Also those who are وَيَجُوزُ أَن يُفَكَّ مِنْهُ الْأَسِيرُ الْمُسْلِمِ. Even a Muslim prisoner can be used, the zakat can be used to get them out of jail as bail or as whatever is required. Any like legal costs. If there's a Muslim person who is in jail, okay, and some of the Muslim people are in jail wrongfully, right? They were set up, okay? Now there is a legal battle they're fighting, okay? And there's a lengthy legal battle they're fighting for many, many years until they get acquitted and they're finally released. This happens more than you'll be surprised how often this happens in America. That kind of person cannot afford to pay lawyers when they're in jail, right? Their family cannot afford to pay lawyers. So that cause is supported by zakat, right? Again, understanding that this is a person who is most probably innocent or definitely innocent, and supporting their cause is important. Now, wal-gharimin, those in debt. Those in debt is primarily one type of category. Primarily it is أو تدين لنفسه في شراء من كفار أو مباح أو محرم وتاب مع الفقر ويعطى وفاء دينه ولو لله. Very interesting explanation. It is a person who has taken a loan that is ranging from halal to haram. Halal loan, I borrowed some money from my father and I invested in a business, and the business completely crashed. Now I'm in debt. Haram loan, I went and I borrowed from a bank an interest-bearing loan, and I did the same thing. And now I'm owing the bank. Whatever spectrum of loan it falls under, okay, a person can be given from zakat to pay off their loan. To pay off their loan. The condition is, if it's a loan that is muharram, it's not a permissible loan, that person must repent from it. Right? So at LMM, this was something that I was discussing with the brothers there, that if somebody comes and says, I have a credit card payment that's you have to make, okay, and it's bearing interest, and this happened actually, the condition we put on that person is, we'll pay this off from the zakat, okay, but you have to cut up your credit card. You have to get rid of your credit card. You live on debit, brother, live on cash, live on debit. You, someone who has gone into this situation, are the tawbah for us in our eyes would be you step away from this. Okay? I'm not giving like a fatwa on the validity of the usage of cards or not. Inshallah, that's permissible as long as a person is able to fulfill their dues before the deadline. But I'm talking particularly about this person who has gone into debt and owes hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars in interest. The tawbah for them isn't just saying astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Tawbah for them is you cut up your credit card. Alright? And that's something is up to the person who is administrating. Fi sabilillah, the way of Allah. I'll maybe finish up quickly on this point. The way of Allah is classically al-ghuza al-mutatawwi'a, voluntary fighters or voluntary soldiers in the military. That was back in the day. Now Shaykh Salah Savi, who is the head of Amja, had a very beautiful explanation. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. Use it to wage jihad against them. What's it in the ayah? Surah Furqan. The it in the ayah is the Quran. It in the ayah is referring to Al-Quran. So he says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the idea of the war of ideas, right? Or battling ideologically with people, and he includes that under the category of jihad. Okay? He includes that in the category of jihad in Surah Furqan. It is quite a clear ayah. If you want, I can show you the ayah as well. So since Allah has done this, even though the classical ulama only say, no, this is only for voluntary fighters. Okay? He says, for us, we have no way that we will ever engage in this, especially living in the West. This is not an option for us. But for us, the option is that we engage in the battle to defend Islam. We engage in the battle to uphold Islam, and the battle to establish the deen to the best of our abilities. Right? Here is the ayah, right, that talks about this. Right? فَلَا تُطِعِ الْكَافِرِينَ وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. And he, with it, right, is referring to the Quran. How do we know that? Because two ayahs before, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Quran. وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَاهُ بَيْنَهُمْ لِيَذَكَّرُوا. Okay? So that is how we understand it. Now the fatwa from the modern day associations of fuqaha is fi sabilillah can be given to people who are supporting the cause of Islam, like institutions, like masajid, like schools, like foundations that are doing work to support the cause of Islam. Anything that broadly falls under the supporting the cause of Islam comes under fi sabilillah. This includes charities today as well, NGOs as well. Okay, so there's care to be exercised, because this is number 7, not number 1. Right? Number 1 in the order is the poor, number 2 is the needy. Right? The order is set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's there. And the classical back then interpretation doesn't apply to us, especially living in the West. So for us, the interpretation that applies is we have to use it to uphold. And that's why you will see many institutions, many masajid, many foundations will say, we are zakat eligible. And they are, like publishing papers or making videos or something, or offering courses because of this reason. I'm trying to explain to you where they're coming from. Okay, you can agree or disagree with them, that's your choice. But explain to you where they're coming from, inshallah. Okay, the last one is, Ibn Sabil is a very specific case, al-musafir al-munqati', a person who has money at home, but is now maybe in a place, in a land where he doesn't have access to his wealth. So he needs money to get back home. Okay, so فَيُعْطَى مَا يُوصِلُهُ إِلَى بَلَدِهِ. This person is given from zakat enough to get them back home. Okay.
Somebody without a credit card.
So today we have, obviously, the cards will make nobody Ibn Sabil. But assume they've lost their credit card, they've lost access to their banking, and they're in say they're in South Africa, right? They're from Canada. they're like, I don't have any money. So zakat can be given to them. Here's a ticket for your flight back to Toronto. Okay? And here's a little bit of money for your expenses on the way. So you get back home and you get back to your wealth. Right? So that is the 8 categories. Okay? Now, I wanted to be not like I wanted to go through them in some detail just to explain to you what the whole spectrum is, right? Inshallah ta'ala. The people specifically, when it comes to relationships, zakat is given horizontally, not vertically. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, it is given to, you can give zakat to your brother, your sister, your cousin, your uncle, your da-da-da-da-da, right? You vertically in the family tree. Horizontally in the family tree. Vertically is who? Who's above you? Father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, right? Like actually above you. Not like a uncle is also above you, but he's more on the side, right? He's not actually like your dad. He's not actually she's not actually your mom, like an aunt. So vertically, father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, you cannot give zakat to them. Okay? Children and grandchildren cannot give zakat to them. That's money, that's an obligation in certain ways, right? It's if not an obligation, it's it's your kids, right? It's your parents. If you won't support them, who else will? Exactly, right? But horizontally, it's fine. All right? What about the wife?
No.
Can't give zakat to the wife. Why?
She has all the money.
Spoken like a wise man there, mashallah. Oh my goodness. So that is true, mashallah. But also because the responsibility of the upkeep of the family falls on the shoulders of the husband, right? So she is included like a dependent, even though she's not a dependent, like a child, but she's included there. It's wajib for you to spend on her. Okay? So she's excluded. What about the wife given to the husband? Can she? Same thing? Slightly different, right? Because she doesn't owe him any financial support. He is not her responsibility. He isn't her responsibility. So if she has money and wants to give him zakat, she can. But one of my teachers say, but if you're taking zakat from your wife, you are very miskeen, man. You are like, you are a miskeen guy, you know. But these are like just to highlight the idea. Okay, where is zakat? Last point before we get into
One point.
yes.
I had a fatwa actually from another imam
Yep.
that a son who's an adult who doesn't live with you,
Yes.
if he is in debt and he cannot pay the debt, then that becomes
As eligible of those who are in debt. Yeah.
If he's in debt, he cannot pay it,
Yeah.
and he doesn't live with you,
Yeah.
then you can pay zakat to pay the debt.
Yeah. That's a good point. I have to look into that particular situation more, but I won't be surprised because you can have this person who is in debt receive zakat, right? So that's a good point. Jazakallah khair. Last point before we go to the calculation is when should zakat be distributed and where should it be given to? Okay, this is points here. Now keep in mind, our friends from National Zakat Foundation will want you to give locally because it supports them, right? But let us explore the idea. Okay, the idea of firstly when. Okay, I already told you it has to be lunar year, right? So why we're talking about when? Well, calculated on the beginning of the lunar year. Okay, so first of Ramadan I calculate this is my zakat. Okay, if you delay after first of Ramadan, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of course is forgiving. You're like 10th of Ramadan, 1st of Ramadan, you're in range. But try to do it as quickly as you can. Okay, don't be like, oh, it's next year's Sha'ban. Like it's almost, the year has already passed and then you're calculating your zakat, right? You're too late. Within the month, just try your best to do it. You can pay it right away if you want. Like, I have money, here is my money, Jazakallah khair, my zakat is done, alhamdulillah. Okay? Or pay it in installments. Installments, not because of your benefit, you're like, I'll, pay zakat in installments because it's better for my cash flow. Right? Not for that purpose, brother. It's because this person that I'm supporting, I like to help them in installments. Monthly basis. If I give them a lump sum for the year, they will go buy a car or something, right? And then come ask me for zakat again. So this is something particularly for people who give their zakat back home to their relatives, right? If you give them all of a sudden your zakat money, mashallah, they'll be very happy, and then they'll call you the next month, say we need more money. So you give them a monthly stipend from zakat, that's fine. Or you can even pay it before. That I mentioned, right? I found some worthy cause, I gave zakat right away. And I just remember, or I write down, this is how much I've already given in zakat. So when I calculate that, I subtract from my amount. And if I've already given all my zakat, alhamdulillah, right? There's no zakat like refund, no tax refund, not like that. If you're given more zakat than what you need to, it's all sadaqah, it's all khair, inshallah. Okay? That's when, let me just finish the who, okay? Who, I'm sorry, not who, where, I'm sorry, where? What do you think? We have three options. Locally, relatives, and abroad. Which one comes first? Locally?
No, relatives.
Number one is actually relatives. Relatives are actually top of the list. The Prophet ﷺ said that if you give zakat to your relatives, that is two good deeds. It is silatul rahim and zakat. It is to keep family ties and then also to do charity. Okay? Now relatives could be anywhere actually. But firstly it's relatives. Then it is locally. And then it is abroad. Okay? Oh, by the way, I should mention this. Who receives it, right? The receiver who receives it. We talked about the 8 categories. We talked also about the horizontally, not vertically. And also the one receiving it has to be a Muslim. Has to be a Muslim. This is a condition that the scholars have put. Where is this condition coming from? The Prophet ﷺ said to Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu when he was going to Yemen, he said to Mu'adh, O Mu'adh, you are going to a people who are Ahlul Kitab. Okay? So, firstly, invite them أن يوحدوا الله. First invite them to the worship of Allah alone, to Tawheed. فَإِنْهُمْ أَقَرُّوا بِذَلِكَ. If they are accepting worshipping Allah alone, then tell them that Allah has made 5 prayers mandatory upon them. فَإِنْهُمْ أَقَرُّوا بِذَلِكَ. If they accept that, then tell them that Allah has mandated upon them zakatu amwalihim tu'khadhu min aghniyaihim wa turaddu ala fuqaraihim. Okay? Allah has mandated zakat on them that is taken from their rich and given to their poor. Okay? So the pronoun is referring to the Muslims here, right? The zakat is taken from their wali, that the money is of the Muslims, and given to their poor. So thus the condition is added that the person who receives it has to be a Muslim. Okay? Imam Ahmad makes like a few exceptions, like for example, if the one who is working for zakat, he is the guard of the, he drives the Brinks truck. Okay? He drives the Brinks truck. He's not really calculating the zakat, he's not distributing zakat, but he drives the Brinks truck that holds the zakat. That person can, if he's not a Muslim, can still get zakat. Okay? So Imam Ahmad makes like a few exceptions here and there, but other than that, there are very few exceptions. Sadaqah can be given to Muslim or non-Muslim. Sadaqah is for everybody. But zakat has to be for a Muslim, uh, and also the idea of locally comes from that point, that hadith. تُؤْخَذُ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ وَتُرَدُّ عَلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ. It's taken from their rich and given to their poor, right? So the local poor people there. One last point, and then I'll take some questions, inshallah, before we get into the calculations, is this is a problem the NGOs face, right? You give to Islamic Relief, your zakat. Islamic Relief cannot go when they're giving zakat and say, you Muslim? Yes, here's zakat. No Muslim? Go take sadaqah. They can't do that. It's legally not allowed for them to do this, to discriminate based on religion. And it's practically impossible, right? If you go to like a country, if they're distributing zakat in like a area where there's Muslims and non-Muslims and they're helping people, how on earth are they supposed to track every dollar that's coming in and keep this is zakat and non-zakat and this zakat goes to the Muslim guy and so these wells are for the Muslim? It's just it's very difficult to the point where actually it's not possible. So the fatwa that's given to these NGOs is it's your responsibility. You're taking the responsibility of distributing zakat. The person has given it to you. Now the burden is on your shoulders. So you have to make sure that you take the zakat projects in countries that are Muslim majority, right? So the idea is that you don't discriminate, but the zakat money is distributed in areas where you're sure the majority of people receiving are Muslims. Even if some non-Muslims get it, no problem. Majority has to be Muslim. And the other projects that you do that are everywhere else, you can use that from any other type of donations. But particularly zakat, track it separately and have zakat projects separately. Now how much of that gets done, I don't know, right? But that's the recommendation and that's the best practice that's given to them. But it's a complicated situation as you can imagine, right? There's a legal issue and then there's also a logistical issue, right? But this is, again, full disclosure, this is how the situation is for them. All right, now before we get into questions, before the calculation, any questions, inshallah? Good luck.
So many of our Muslims eat at food banks in
Yes.
the city, but they're not Muslim food banks.
Yeah.
So is it okay to give to food bank, let's say, in zakat money to, let's say, the Salvation Army? Because I mean, I've served there.
Yeah.
Many Muslims that want food.
Yeah. For zakat, I would say no. For sadaqah, I would say yes. Right? Sadaqah for food banks is a beautiful idea. But because zakat is very, very specific, right? And we spoke about how it is a very particular type of charity. That one should be given to, if you're giving it ideally, in the most ideal case, you actually give it to a person yourself. Okay? If not the most ideal case, you're giving it to like a charity. That charity should be like a Muslim charity that understands the responsibility of zakat. Okay? That's my recommendation, inshallah. Because this is a pillar and an obligation. Sadaqah is very relaxed. You can give sadaqah to whoever you want. Okay? Udhiyah meat, meat that's sacrificed, can be given to whoever you want. Okay? But zakat is very, very specific for that reason. Okay. Question?
With regards to like Islamic Relief, which I use
Yeah.
as well, there's also like a tax incentive as well.
Yes.
So how is that viewed?
That's a gift from the government to you. Accepted, brother. Any tax benefit is the government giving you a gift, right? This is the laws of the tax laws. The tax code gives you that as a gift. You take it, alhamdulillah, right? You don't have to. There's no obligation on you to like take that tax return and give it back in charity. That is two different transactions, right?
Can zakat be, like you have a zakat fund, you have enough zakat, can that be invested for the purpose that more people can take benefit and you keep adding more every year?
Excellent question. Zakat shouldn't be an investment, right? You look at the 8 categories. In fact, zakat can't be an investment. You look at the 8 categories, and they're people, right? They're not foundations. Here is a poor person. Here's a needy person. Here is someone who's employed. It's supposed to be given to like individuals. The investment part of like the foundations, the waqf, right? Endowments, that is made from sadaqah.
My question is,
Yeah.
I know someone,
Yeah.
he's a business person,
Yes.
so he has enough zakat,
Yeah.
and he has a separate fund,
Yes.
and he keep on adding more there.
Yes.
And keep like distributing out of that. But in that zakat, even he has, like, he put a van, that van is earning money, and all
Yeah.
money is going back to that zakat fund.
Right.
And they keep on distributing from there every lot of money, and they
It's a very nice idea, right? But ideas have like their place. Zakat
It must
money.
be distributed and given before the next year.
Yeah, because here's the reason. Zakat, once zakat is owed, once I calculate that I have to give $21 in zakat, for example, that $21 in my bank account is no longer my money. That is the poor man's money. That is the money belonging to one of those 8 categories. So it's not up to you to decide, I'll do this with it because it's more benefit. The benefit is great, you can do that with your money. You can do that with your sadaqah. You can do that with, right, your own investments. But zakat becomes not yours once you have calculated. That's the mindset that we're supposed to have about zakat.
But
That,
when you're paying installments, you have
Yeah.
money sitting with you.
Yes.
If that is sitting somewhere, it's multiplying itself.
yes.
At the end, you have given a lot more than what was actually.
You-
That's
you-
the whole point.
Again, I understand the point, but the installment payments, you're doing it for the benefit of that person. You don't trust them with all the money right away, right? But you keep it, it's technically, Islamically, that money isn't even yours anymore,
Yeah.
right? So you leave it, you give it out in installments. Other good things like this, like I said, the Prophet told us that you should take the money of the orphan and invest it. Right? This is a principle of the Sharia, right? We shouldn't just let that money sit around for years and decades, right? It should be put to use. It should be earning returns. And endowments are like waqf is how like the Muslim societies were built, right? So there's no doubt about that. That's all good. But zakat is very specific and very different, and that's why I would say no to that, right? Questions? Let's go around with the questions. If I can, you have a related question onto your?
This was for
Okay.
about 6-number category where
Okay.
we are talking about the people who are in debt.
Yes.
So if student, they have like these adult earning money but have a OSAP.
Yes.
So, and got married and now the wife have
OSAP.
85, wife have OSAP.
MashaAllah. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
how that gold, if they are carrying like 90 grams of gold, so how it works?
Okay. So the calculation we'll get to in a little bit. Okay. That's a complicated. That's a more complicated situation, right? Because here is a person or a couple that is earning well, but they are also in severe debt. It's similar to if they have a mortgage. That's a large debt on your head, right? Like, can I get like zakat to pay off my mortgage? So there is a way to address that. This debt is like, okay, I have to pay it off. I have no money to pay this off, right? OSAP, the understanding is someone has gotten OSAP, but now they're working and they're paying in installments. Okay, that's separate. Here is like, I can't pay in installments. I will be like put in jail, or I'll be like, you know. So that is where the zakat comes to the rescue of that sinking person. Okay, let's go around and take questions. Inshallah. Let's go from Brother Andam and work around.
Sometimes people will pull out money for zakat
Yeah.
and say, a miskin,
Huh.
and try to buy him a business or teach him a trade, so that instead of giving him just money to feed today and be done with,
Yes.
you're teaching him you're teaching him a trade so that he can become independent in future.
Yes.
Now, so you hold that money down until then you manage or help him manage with the business. Will that be eligible in that way?
So, excellent idea. But the same, it goes back to the point, right? Once it's zakat, it's no longer your money,
Yeah.
right? So you don't, like, it's supposed to be given to the poor person. Okay? You're giving it on installments just for the safety or for their safety. But in reality, the idea is they're given the entirety of the money, here it is. Teaching them something is good. Helping them start a business is good. That is all done through sadaqah. That is all done through sadaqah. It is a very, very clear distinction here between the two. That the Sharia makes about it. إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ. The li in this ayah, the scholars go into quite a bit of detail and they say this li is for al-tamalluk. Meaning, once sadaqah or zakat is due, it is the property of one of these 8 categories. Right? So that's where it comes out. All those ideas are great. And they've been in existence for hundreds of years in the Muslim world. But they're always made out of sadaqah. They're always done through sadaqah. There are services that people provide. Like Umar radiallahu anhu, who uses zakat money to pave roads sometimes. Okay? There are some people who run some services like ambulance services. All of that come under the fi sabilillah category. Okay? Because it's serving a communal purpose. You see? So there is a way to frame those. But individually, it's a different conversation. You see? But then,
for number 7, would
yes.
it be like, would you possibly put the categories like a dawah organization, so somebody would give dawah?
According to the fatwa from Amja, yes, you can. A dawah organization would be under that because they are doing the work of Allah. Right? Fi sabilillah. Yes.
Now, if you have, which one is more of a priority? A relative who's needy, or someone who's abroad, or locally, and the poor?
So relative, it always takes the first spot.
Doesn't matter how much,
How far they are, right? Relative as in they're not like your 4th cousin or something, It's like your uncle, your aunt, your cousin. It's your blood, right? Like you guys are family, right? Of course, siblings even more, right? Siblings even more. They take precedence because that family ties, keeping them is very important in Islam.
even if there's a need, like a big need, people are running out of hunger or out of,
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. So these categories are under normal circumstances. Okay, if there's like a famine in like Africa somewhere, then the situation changes a little bit. Okay, then zakat, they become higher priority because their life is on the line, right? So this is under normal circumstances. Under times where there is a crisis, situation is different. The crisis should be averted first. So Jazakallah khair, is a good point. Hadi.
So do you need to disclose that I'm paying zakat?
Excellent question. Do I have to tell someone I'm giving you zakat? So this is a point of contention. The idea is as follows. If the person is used to taking charity and zakat, you don't have to tell them this is zakat. If this person refuses to take charity, refuses to take zakat, because they feel it's below them, you have to tell them that I'm giving this money to you and this is zakat money. And they have to accept it. So I'll give you an example. One of my aunts, she is like my father and her other sisters support her, but she never takes zakat. Even though, she should be taking zakat because she has no money, her husband has no money, they don't they don't do anything, but they feel that it's beneath them. They feel that their siblings giving them this money is like them giving money to their parents, right? It's like an obligation, even though technically it's not. They're taking care of them as like a favor, right? So this person, I would tell, for example, my dad that don't give them zakat, because even though they take money from you, even though they're taking sadaqah from you, but they're taking it as if this is my right because you are my brother, right? They don't take it as you are giving this to me as charity. So the mindset has to be very clear. Whereas there's other relatives, for example, that take zakat, have taken for many years, and you don't have to tell them every single year, zakat is coming, brother, right? You don't have to put them down like that. So it's a case by case basis, but it has to be clear to the person that they have taken zakat money if they generally refuse it. Make sense? So let's do some questions. Yes. Go. Let's, because brother had hand up. Yes.
It's the concept of installments. So let's
Yes.
just say, for example, my zakat is due the first day of Ramadan.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I can pay my zakat until next Ramadan with installments?
Yes. So you have to finish out your zakat before your next lunar, before next Ramadan. Yes.
But it has to have that intention of installments. So just say, I'll
Yeah.
pay off my zakat
Yeah.
throughout that year. Can you do that, or Is that?
So the installment is, the idea of installment isn't that I don't have all the money right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to, sell my stocks to give zakat. Okay. The idea is, installment is for the benefit of this person,
Yeah.
not for my benefit.
Okay.
Right? If there's no benefit for the person, say I'm giving my zakat to National Zakat Foundation. All right. Then I'll give the whole thing right away.
Okay.
Right? Because then it's up to them to distribute it in installments.
Okay.
But if I'm giving it to like an individual, like Fulan needs zakat, I know he's a good brother, but he needs some help. I'll say, you know what, I'll give you $200 a month. And that, like, I send him that money every month because I know that's what will help him.
Okay.
That's different.
Yeah.
Right? But that's because I'm doing it for his benefit.
It's a special circumstance. It's not. the only
Exactly.
reason,
Not for my convenience.
Not for my convenience. It's for their benefit. Right? Amish, you have a question?
Actually, several scenarios.
Yes.
One is farmland,
Yes.
other one is pension,
Yes.
I'll repeat that.
We're coming to pensions.
RRSP,
Coming to that as well.
okay. RIF,
What is it called? Registered.
like annuity.
Oh, we'll come to that. All the registered investments accounts are all coming, inshallah. Farmland, ask me like afterwards, because farmland has a very specific way of giving zakat. It's due when you harvest, and if the irrigation is natural versus, artificial, and it's based on that, right? So it's not like, I think most people don't have that. So I can look at your situation specifically and then hopefully give you answer there. Is that okay, inshallah? Other questions? Yes.
When we pay our zakat
Hmm.
charities, and they have their administrative charges,
Yes.
so do we bear those charges and deduct that from our zakat?
Yeah, excellent question. So their administrative charges there's an admin fee on the part of the charity. Then there is like a transaction fee. You pay by debit card, they get charged like some percent, like 2% or something, right? When it comes to zakat, so the admin fee is not our business. That's for them to figure out themselves. Okay, that's a trust that we have that we've given to them. Okay, but the administrative fee for like the transaction, that particular one, if I know it's like 2.5%, for example, then I should add that 2.5% if I'm paying by credit card or debit card. If I'm giving cash, then I don't have to, because the zakat I give and what they receive will be deducted by 2.5%, right? So to make sure the whole of it reaches, I should add that on top and then make that payment, right? And the National Zakat Foundation guys are very clever, because when you are writing like, I want to give this much as zakat, they say actually the charge for the transaction will be this much. Would you like to add this? And he would say yes, and then they add it immediately. So they're very, very clever in this regards. But it is a good point, inshallah. I'm Yusuf. The question? No? Okay. All right, let's go to the calculations, right? This is under normal circumstances. Okay, calculations. Not for Ramadan. We already talked about that. How do you calculate zakat? Okay, so here you have a whole list of items. Okay. Let us go through this quickly, and then I'll bring the spreadsheet in play, because the spreadsheet will make things quite easy. Okay, so let us look at zakatable assets. The idea is as follows: you take your zakatable assets, you subtract from that your liabilities, and whatever is left over, you pay zakat on. So my zakatable assets are 5,000. My liabilities are 4,000. What am I left with? 1,000. I pay.
assets, is it trashy or
I'll explain what the assets are, but just to make the big picture, right? Zakatable assets will cover 5,000. Liabilities 4,000. My zakat is now due on 1,000. 2.5% of 1,000 is $25, right? That's what we're trying to do. So what is that 5,000 figure? What is that zakatable asset? Okay, let's look at that. Number one, cash and liquid assets. Anything that's cash is considered cash, right? You have to include that in zakat calculations, into your as a zakatable asset. I will exclude the liquid investments for a second, and I'll come back to that, because we have different ways of dealing with liquid investments. We have a TFSA, okay? We have registered accounts. We'll come to that in a little bit. Just keep the idea of cash here right now. Cash is I can go and get it right away, okay? This is cash, okay? Very straightforward, not that complicated. You take that amount. Next amount you take is gold and silver. Here is a difference of opinion between the schools of Islamic jurisprudence. The school of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says you have to give zakat on gold and silver. Okay, actually, let me backtrack. Gold and silver bought for the purposes of currency and investment, everybody agrees you have to pay zakat on. Bought for currency, like you bought gold because you want to like use that gold to purchase something, or as an investment, bought a gold bullion or a gold coin. Okay, everybody across the board says you give zakat on that because it is a zakatable asset. The difference is on the jewelry that the women wear. The jewelry that the women wear, is that zakatable or not? The school of Imam Abu Hanifa says, yes. You add the gold and silver into the amount and you pay zakat on it. Imam Ahmad says that there is no zakat on the huli, on the jewelry that a woman wears. And he says about this particularly, he says that he says وَيُبَاحُ لِلنِّسَاءِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ مَا جَرَتْ عَادَتُهُنَّ بِلُبْسِهِ وَلَوْ كَثُرَ. He says women are exempt from paying zakat on what they are wearing as jewelry, whatever they consider to be normal, even if it's a lot, right? Even if it is a lot, whatever they consider to be normal, they exempt it. Okay, so that is a good position. If you like to follow that position, that's a good position in the school of Islamic jurisprudence. Okay, the book here mentions you go by the opinion of the school of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. All right. Now, if you were to take that position, let me explain the position of the Abu Hanifa school here quickly. They would say if you own personal use items that are made from a mixture of metals, these are only liable to zakat if half or more of that metal is gold or silver. Although some scholars hold that the proportion of gold or silver in any owned asset is zakatable. Okay, so jewelry is made up of a variety of things. There's like stones and there's gold and silver. So the position here is you figure out how much gold and silver there is and you pay zakat on that. Okay, number two, it is valued at resale value, not the spot price. Okay, the spot price is always higher. The resale value is lower, like the market value is lower. Okay, so that is what the second point they mentioned here. Let me show you an example. Okay, so you have the price of gold. I have this. Okay, the price of gold. This is not updated. This is like from last year. So I think now it's maybe 1,500 or something. Okay, this is the price of gold. How much gold? This is my wife. How much gold does she have? Clearly, I don't have any gold. We made this calculation. We went to a jeweler and we said, how much gold is in this? Okay, or actually, in fact, we didn't go to a jeweler. I bought this little scale. Most of her jewelry is made almost entirely of gold. So I just weighed it. This was the amount that came out. That was the weight that came out. So you just do it once and that's it. And then after that, I just do this calculation. I take the price of my the spot price, multiply that by 0.8, 80%, because that's usually the resale value. Spot price is 1,600. I get 80% of that if I go to sell it, and then I multiply that with her jewelry, the gold in it, and from that I arrive at the figure that this is the amount that zakat is due on. Right? That is the way, that's following Imam Abu Hanifa's way. If you were to follow the other way, you would say jewelry, I will exclude it. Whatever she's wearing naturally. Okay? Like my wife, for example, doesn't wear this jewelry. It's sitting in like a TD bank, like lockbox, and I'm just paying zakat on it. That's why I pay zakat on it. But what she's wearing, I don't count for that. I don't count that. Okay? This is sitting in the bank, is just there. Right? So that is gold and silver. You take the resale value, generally 80% of the spot price. Next one is debt owed to you. Zakat is payable on strong debts, i.e. money owed to you that you are confident you will that will be returned back to you. I gave $1,000 to my cousin. He's a bum. Like, I don't think he's returning it back to me. Okay? So I was like, khalas, this money is gone. I'm not going to pay zakat on it. I gave $1,000 to my wife's sister. Like, she's a good person, I know she'll give that money back to me. I'll pay zakat on that. Okay? I'll pay zakat on that, and she will subtract it from her zakatable assets. She will subtract that from her liabilities. We'll come to the calculations in a little bit. I just want to quickly run through the things here. Shares and investments. Ignore this piece here, because this is a little, I think, this one misses the mark a little bit. We'll come to the registered amounts, investments in a little bit. Property and fixed assets. This is an important one. Anything that's a fixed asset, property, is not subject to zakat. Car, house, no zakat. Right? You're not doing like a net worth for the sake of applying for like credit or something. Right? Zakatable assets are very particularly these specific items. House, car, etc. is excluded and exempted from that. Okay? Now what happens if I purchase the house? That's not my residence. I purchased a second house. There's a few scenarios. Scenario number one, I am going to use that house as a rental property. Right? If I'm using it as a rental property, zakat is due on the rental income. You take the rental income and you add it to your total income. Right? Simple. And the value of the house is excluded. We're like, but brother, this value, this, that's what it is. Right? That's what it is. Alhamdulillah. There's no need to worry about that. What happens if I bought the house and say I do house flipping, right? Flipping houses. People who buy a house, fix it up, and sell it again. So for me, the house is like a trade asset. It's something I'm trading. It's like if I'm selling cell phones, okay? Or it's like I'm selling apples. It's like a trade asset for me. In that case, if the house remains with me for a year and my intention is to buy it, flip it, then I pay zakat on its value. That's a very specific case because for me that's like a business asset. It's not a rental property. It's not a house that I live in. I bought it and I'm going to use it to make profit by selling it. Okay? The third scenario is I bought it and I have no intention. I have no intention. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe I'll live there. Maybe I'll rent it. Maybe I'll... In that case, there is no zakat. Imam Ahmad says, this person, if they buy a lot of these homes, right, and even if they're doing this to run away from zakat, there is no zakat on them because Allah will hold them accountable later. So now here are the basic scenarios. Now there is a whole mixture of scenarios in the middle as well, right? Maybe I bought the house and I also want to sell, I want the appreciation from the house and I also want the rental income, right? But I pay zakat on the rental income only. I pay zakat on the appreciation when I sell the property. And it's been there with me for a year. Remember the lump sum, we make a separate exception to it, right? So that's basically how houses and fixed assets are broken down. Questions about fixed assets?
Did you pay on the appreciation or you pay on the total value?
No. So when you sell the house,
Yes.
whatever you get in your hand, the equity you have,
Total price.
not the price, the equity that is yours,
Total sale price. That you receive,
that you received, yes. That,
which includes your principal and the growth.
correct, right? That one, once it sits for a year with you, then you pay zakat on that. But not right away, right? Because we said the lump sum is
1 year.
separate.
But my principal sat with me for a year.
Yeah, the principal, no, but the house doesn't count as,
Well, it's not my house, so this is, I'm buying it for investment,
yeah, that's okay, right?
so you don't pay tax on it.
So you don't pay
Don't pay
zakat,
zakat.
you don't pay zakat on the house until you sell it, right? The only time you would pay zakat on the house that is like you on the value of the house is when you bought it and you're like a house flipper,
And the profit you made from it.
right? The profit, your intent, the only intention I have is I'm gonna buy this house, fix it, sell it, and make a profit. Like if I was to buy a phone and sell it at a higher price, or buy something and sell it, that's my only intention. That is when you pay zakat on the value. Every other time, you pay zakat on the rental income, or you pay zakat once you have sold the house, on the final equity, the final amount that you get in your hand, right? Once it has sat with you. Now you can say, well, this is a person fleeing from zakat. Again, the intention is with the person, right? You bought the house for the sake of investment. That's a different thing than a person trying to hide money.
So you are basically paying
That's a
zakat
good-
on the,
good way of avoiding
on the
zakat.
profit.
Yeah.
That's a good way of
it-
avoiding zakat.
Again, zakat is at the end of the day a personal act of worship, right? This is the legal Islamic positions, and then it goes back to the person, right? Like, am I trying to do this to run away from zakat, or am I trying to do this to be like a set up myself for financial success down the road? Because when you sell the house, eventually you will pay zakat on that money, or if you don't pay zakat on it and you've invested it again, that's also fine, because part of the objective is the money keeps circulating. You see? So that, and it becomes, again, you go by the precedence, and that's the precedence that's there, right? Not the other way.
That anyways comes to your total income at the end of the year, any profit that you made on it.
Yes.
Even though you invested
The profit on?
on the selling of the house.
Yes, once you've sold the house, whatever you get at the end, your initial principal plus appreciation, that amount, lump sum comes in, after a year, you give zakat.
But
Make
if you
sense?
buy another property,
Yeah, if you don't,
Yeah.
Keep rolling
There's
until
no
you
1
never
year.
pay.
If he keeps doing that, that's okay, right? That's okay. Again, it seems like the door is open for a person to like play games with zakat, right? But again, playing games with zakat is playing games with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And if a person is doing this, like I said, like Imam Ahmad, for example, says, if a person is doing this, just buying houses just to avoid this, according to the letter of the Sharia, that's okay. Because a aqar, right, this is what a property is called, is not zakatable. It's not. That's why, you have to keep that, and fear of manipulation of it does not, like the fear, or like a few people, few bad apples should not be the reason why everybody else suffers from it, right? That's how the fuqaha kind of go about it. You see? Coming to our retired, or our registered funds, okay? Registered funds are more interesting. Now here, let's make a distinction. Distinction between a TFSA and everything else. Okay, so a TFSA is a tax-free savings account. A TFSA is, you put money in it, you can buy stocks, you can buy mutual funds, you can buy a whole bunch of assets in it, but it is money that is there for you. If you want to sell that asset and get that money in your bank account, you can get it sometimes within like a day, or sometimes within a week or something, depending on who the broker is, right? If you're using Questrade or something, it'll take a week. If your bank is the one that is also holding your TFSA account, it could be within the hour or something, okay? TFSA, I would say, is considered like cash. TFSA is considered like cash. Why?
You have access to it.
It's so liquid, right? You have access to it right away, all right? The RRSPs are not considered to be like TFSA. RRSP is a registered retirement saving plan, right? What happens is you put money in it, you get a tax break now, you take the money out later at a lower income and you pay less taxes. That's the principle that it works under. Okay? So that money that you put away, do you have access to it? Yes. But if you were to access it, will that affect the rest of your income? Most definitely yes. Right? So what you would do for the RRSPs is you would subtract the 30% withholding tax. And then there's like a whole like schedule of how the withholding tax is. You can calculate that very easily, but generally it's 30%. Okay? Above, I think, $10,000, it's 30%. So you take your RRSP value, subtract from it your withholding tax, which is 30%, and then you pay zakat on, and you add that to your income afterwards. Okay? Pensions are excluded. Why? You don't have access to it, right? Only when you start getting your pension funds, that's when it becomes zakat eligible. Okay? Right now, I don't have access to my CPP, for example. I can't pay zakat on it. Okay? Likewise, any other account that's locked in, you cannot access. Any account.
So the locked-in ones which you can't access before 65, for example.
Yes.
That are basically doesn't come under the zakat.
It does not, because you don't have access to it.
True.
Right? You don't have access to it, that's why it doesn't count.
That's as a pension, right? Not as RSP. Because in RSP, you're saying deduct 30%, you pay
Correct.
that difference.
Yes. RSP, you technically do have access to it, but it's not the wisest decision because you'll lose a bunch of money the moment you take it out, right? So that's where the distinction is, right? The idea of accessibility is what determines it. RESP, Registered Education Saving Plan, is more interesting. RESP, I asked this of Sheikh Salah Al-Sawi, and he said that there is no zakat that you pay on RESP either. Because of what?
Well, it's not your money anyway.
It's not your money.
It's not,
It's for the children.
technically, I could close the account and just take the money back. Right? Technically speaking. However, I don't have access to it like I have access to TFSA or RSP. Right? I can't just, click a button and say, okay, now process this transaction. Right? And then there's a complicated calculation. The government takes their contribution back and they charge you tax on the returns and da-da-da. So it is not like that. It's not like RSP, it's not like TFSA. It's more like a pension fund. So it is to be what? Excluded. All right? So that is that. Any other non-registered fund, if you have like stocks that are like non-registered, not in TFSA, mashallah, you have maxed out your TFSA and then you have stocks in this, in like a trust or something, right? Just shares. Or you have an investment that is a fund but is not a registered fund. Okay? They offered it as as an LP. Okay? And you purchase shares on it. All of those things are case-by-case basis. How liquid is it? Is my share an investment really liquid? Like, can I call the guy and say, I need my money, and then a week later he gives me my check? Right? Or is it that investment is very, it's invested in in a building? Okay? And I can't just say, hey, I need my $1,000 back now. Because he can't just sell like a wall of the building and give it to me, right? So those are more case by case. The question that determines it is how liquid, right? How liquid. And the second question is, how do you see it? If I purchased an investment in a real estate product, that's a limited partnership. But for me, this is like me buying a house and I'm earning rental income. Then I will only pay on the dividend that I get, right? But if I bought it and I'm like, this is an asset, like a share for me, okay? It's like a share in like a Google or something. Then I'll pay zakat on the value of it, not just the actual return. So that is the basic ideas behind the registered funds. Business assets, I will exclude from this because generally if you have a business, the business is treated like a separate person. Yes or no? For tax purposes, you treat the business as a separate person. You don't mix between the milk and the meat, right? Somebody got that reference? Not kosher. So what I would recommend is you pay zakat on your business independently. Okay, like you track your like treat your business like it's an orphan and you're its guardian. Okay, and you are tracking its money and you're tracking everything, and at the end of the lunar year you pay zakat on your on the business that you have. But the business particularly it's for trade goods. Zakatable assets are trade goods. So goods, raw materials, all of that. If I'm selling water bottles, for example, that's a trade good. Okay. If I'm offering consulting services, that's not a trade good. Okay. I would pay zakat on like the balance in my bank account then. If I'm offering a consulting service, I am completely virtual. I will pay zakat on the balance of my bank account, just like I do for personal reasons. For the if I am selling actual products, I have to keep in mind what kind of product it is, and then I pay zakat on my inventory based on the wholesale price. So say I am a consultant. I have a consulting business, and I don't sell anything physically. Okay, and I have all these like invoices I give, and I receive payments. So I track my payments, and then the first of Ramadan, I say, you know what? Here is all the assets my business has. Here is all the liabilities, and here is the final amount, and I'll pay zakat on it as if it's like a person. All right. If I'm selling physical goods, I'm selling water bottles, for example. Okay. I will say I have in inventory 1,000 water bottles. I'm selling them for $10. How much is that? 10,000, right? But the wholesale price is $5. I got them at $5. So I will pay zakat on 5,000. $5 the wholesale price times the inventory, and then I pay zakat on that. So that's how a business works. But I would say separate the business completely from your personal zakat calculations, because that's how we treat a business, right? We keep it completely separate. So those are the business assets. Now let me quickly go to the liabilities, and I'll go to the spreadsheet because we'll do some examples and it'll all come together inshallah. Okay? Liabilities, certain liabilities can be deducted from your zakatable assets. Okay? So this is over outstanding expenses such as rent payments. Ramadan first was what day in May? May 6th, right? Mashallah, we already forgot it. I've forgotten already. May 6th. My rent for my the insurance for my house monthly goes on the 20th. Okay? You see? It's a payment I'm expecting to make in May. Ramadan started before that. So I will deduct that payment as like a liability. Okay? If my rent goes on the 15th, for example. Okay? It doesn't usually, but assume for a minute. Then I will deduct that rent from in advance as a liability. Just for that 1 month. The month that Ramadan falls in, only the expenses that are carrying over from the last year, I will just add them and I will deduct them. Okay? And this is all expenses, all living expenses such as rents, utility bills, any payments that you make to, basically live your life, right? All of that. Okay? Now comes the interesting problem of debt. I can deduct debt from my zakat payment. But if a person has a mortgage of $300,000, are they deducting $300,000 every single time? Of course not. They will never pay zakat on it ever. Right? If it's a long-term debt that you pay installments on, you take the installment, you take the part of the installment that's not interest. Because the interest is, you're not supposed to pay interest anyway. So you're not supposed to pay zakat on that. You can't deduct that from your zakat. You take the non-interest part and you multiply that by 12. That's the amount you deduct from your zakat. So say the payment a person makes is 1,500. 500 goes to interest, 1,000 is principal. Okay? They will take 1,000 times 12, 12,000, and deduct that from their zakat, because that's the debt they owe for the year. Okay? If it's a short debt, it's not like a principal, it's not a schedule. I borrowed $5,000 from my dad. Okay, I will just deduct 5,000. Okay, that is how the liabilities work, and that's basically that. For the business, it's exactly the same. The same principles that apply to the individual apply to the business. Now let us do the calculation. Okay, I said 2 to 4, so I will end inshallah before 4. All right, here is my spreadsheet. Okay, and if you want, you give me your email. I can email this to you inshallah. Okay, I take price of gold, spot price. Okay, I have my grams of gold that are not worn by my wife. Okay, I'm doing both of ours together, by the way.
This is 24 karat gold, not 10 karat gold.
Uh,
You're talking about the gold amount that's in the jewelry, not the weight of the whole jewelry.
yes, correct. The weight, the amount of gold that's in the jewelry. That's correct. By the way, for me and my wife, we just do it together, right? Most couples have their assets all together, so you can just do one calculation. But if your accounts are separate, you keep things separately, then you should do separate ones. Like the husband should do their own and the wife should do their own. Generally, it doesn't work that way. Like from what I've seen, like I don't think my mom has ever given zakat, because my dad always gives zakat on her behalf. And for my wife and me, we have everything kind of together. So that's why everything is here. But assume this is just me, right? I have this gold. So I take the value spot price, I multiply that by 0.8, reduce it to a resale value, and then I calculate how much the gold is worth. Okay? I take the silver, do the same calculation for silver, but right now I have no silver here. I take cash at bank. Cash at bank. Cash at bank, I have included here things such as, let me just make this a little smaller. Yeah, I've included checking account, if I have US dollars, if I have PayPal, okay? Anywhere I have cash sitting around, okay? Cash at bank, I'll call that, okay? Cash in hand. Cash in hand is, in my pocket I have a bunch of bills or something, right? Or in your wallet you have some money. What I do is I actually pay my Visa before I use it, right? So it's usually like above the limit. So I look at how much more I have paid before I use it, right? So any cash that's sitting anywhere, you account for that and you put this in the spreadsheet. Okay?
That needs to be like in a 1 year denomination, or it can be like 15 days or whatever.
In what?
For example, like you pay your credit card in advance.
Yeah.
You always have a credit balance of
Yeah.
$200.
Yeah.
Try to maintain it. Right?
Yeah.
So you have a $200 all the time.
Yeah.
So you take $200 in the calculation.
Yes, $200, right? Because the others already spent, right? And you try to make it all like one currency, okay? If you have multiple currencies, you have US dollars, you have rupees, you have dinar, you have thing. I don't know how you would do it. Maybe you want to do separately, right? Maybe you want to do all one in dollars. You can figure out. I would suggest for simplification, just make it all one currency. Convert it and, and go with that. TFSAs. I take the value of all my TFSA accounts. Sorry, question about the cash?
Cash in the bank.
Yeah.
It's always like changing throughout
Yeah.
the year.
Yes.
So do you take the amount of the closing or
First of Ramadan.
first? Just
Log in 1st of Ramadan. This is what I'm doing on 1st of Ramadan, right?
Okay.
I'm doing this calculation on 1st of Ramadan. Remember, we exclude lump sum. Lump sum from my account, I can say, yeah, this 20 I just got like 2 weeks ago. This is lump sum, I'm going to take this away. Okay? But in my 1st of Ramadan, I log in and I start getting these numbers. I start getting my value of the gold, how cash at bank, cash in hand, TFSA. What is my value of TFSA 1st of Ramadan? Okay? I just write the entire value down, right? Here I have another line from my wife, but same thing. RSP, I take the value of all the different accounts, with, minus the 30% withholding tax, and that's there. Any rental income, that I have earned, I'm adding that separately. Now, maybe your rental income goes into your cash at bank, okay? But maybe it's like a separate thing that's there. Whatever the case is, so you have to make sure that's included in one way or the other, right? I've made this a line just to highlight it more. Maybe perhaps it's already in cash and bank for you, right? Other liquid investments, investments that are not registered, but I can call the guy and say, I need my money. Okay, it's an LP, it's a limited partnership, and he can liquidate it and send it to me within a certain amount. I would add that here. Anything that's not a liquid investment, another limited partnership, but it's invested in a bunch of bison. There's actually an investment like that called cow pool. Okay, you can't just like sell your shares right away. The bison only sell like at a certain time of the year. So I would consider that not to be liquid. I will only consider the return from that, the dividend from that, as rental income. You see? So that's where the distinction lies. The question you have to answer, how liquid is your investment? All right? Loans receivable, money you're owed. The $1,000 I gave to my bum cousin, I will not include here, because he's not giving it back to me. But $1,000 I gave to my sister-in-law, I will include that here, because I know she's going to return that to me. So I add these numbers. Let's add some numbers. Say $1,000 of loan receivable. I have maybe $5,000 in my TFSA. I have maybe $5,000 in my bank account. I have, say, $10,000. Let's make it, say, $20,000 in my RRSP times 0.7. Times 0.7 because? Withholding tax, right? I have like $500 of rental income that came, alhamdulillah. Okay, my total assets now are 36,339. Okay, now I deduct from this personal loans. Okay, money that I owe, right? And generally here I write who I owe it to. Right? So I owe, say, $20,000 to my dad. I borrowed money to buy something, and it's still sitting there. Okay, it's my dad. I'm not giving him installments. I'm going to give it to him whenever. Outstanding mortgage payment for this zakat year. You can include student loans, mortgages, any payment schedule here. How does it work? You add, say, what's the principal, not the interest. The principal is $1,000 of my payment. Okay, the principal here is $1,000. That gives me $12,000 of a yearly debt. Okay, rent and outstanding utilities, I say maybe $1,000 after I do my calculation. Okay, I'm being generic here. My liabilities now are what? 33,000. My net assets are 3,339, and I pay 2.5% zakat on that. If I don't have any debts, maybe like I have paid off my dad, I'd have no debts left. Alhamdulillah. But I'm still making like monthly payments for, a house or a student loan. Here you see the calculation is totally different. I have now a $23,000 net asset, right? And now my zakat due is more. Maybe, alhamdulillah, I did really well in 1 year, and my TFSA jumps to $50,000. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, right? You see, all of a sudden, my net assets are way more, 68, but your zakat is still about $1,700. So that's how it's calculated, right?
I have just one question.
Yes, let's do questions, inshallah, as we go around, inshallah. Is that okay? I start from the right here. Adil, please.
So like for example, nowadays you're only paying zakat or as a liability, for example,
Yes.
principal amount, not the interest amount, even from the mortgage payment, right?
Principal, yes.
Correct. That's one thing. Same thing for the loans as well. What about the property taxes? Usually they go like on a quarterly basis or still comes under the liability.
So that will not be a loan. That will be like a rent, utility, and other bills, right? However, I would say, with zakat, you err on the side of caution. If you're like, I say, forget the bill for May. It was May 5th, Ramadan started, right? Forget this. I don't want to include that $1,000. That's okay. That's just being safe. You see?
Right. So for that yearly I'm paying $5,000 in property tax.
Sure.
Should I add that?
No. So property tax is not a loan, right? This is not. It's like a utility bill that you pay. So if it is coming out, like say in May, like a portion of it is coming out in May, you're paying it on a schedule, then that portion you can deduct as a rent. or as a utility bill. But the whole amount of property tax you can't, because it's not a loan, right? It's like a bill you pay, right? Just like you pay hydro and gas and all that stuff. Make sense? You know ahead of time how much you're paying, right? For the property tax, but it's more like a utility bill that you pay.
So you are not including your utility bills like hydro or gas and everything?
No, only for the 1 month that Ramadan overlaps it,
That's it.
but not for the whole year. Not for the whole year. No.
So you only what I owe for last month.
Yes, what I owe from the last lunar year, because May 1st was still last lunar year. May 5th was the new lunar year for me, or May 6th, right? So I still include the last lunar year's payments in the calculations. But if it's not, then I will just not include that. Inshallah.
Sorry, I'm very confused.
Okay.
So,
No problem.
So what you're saying,
Yes.
like, it is a liability for me to every month pay hydro bill
Yes.
and Anwer bill or the gas bill.
Yes.
And, whatever the water bill.
No
Yes.
future liability.
I'm just talking about throughout the year. Like,
Yes.
I passed last Ramadan, alhamdulillah, and the new year.
Yes.
And I'm still calculating the first day of the Ramadan.
Yes.
So am I going to calculate, I have exactly how much I paid every month?
No, you don't. Your utility bills are just bills. It's like food and water and grocery. The only thing, it's just any payment you made, right? The only rent bill and other utilities you're adding here is like what's due from last month. So right now is May. You are making a payment in May for something that was in April,
Okay.
that you used in April. April was the last lunar year, right?
Right.
So that's why
make
you
that only for 1 month.
only for that one
The
amount.
rest of the year you can use
You
it
don't.
back.
No. Make sense? Yeah. Other questions we had? Yes.
When you talked about calculating the cash in bank,
Yes.
my usual practice has been to look for the lowest balance in the entire year, and that would be my one, because you have to fulfill the 1 year condition
Yes.
as well.
So that again goes back to the idea that we had here. Money that's scheduled, the recommendation is not to take the lowest bank amount that you have. The recommendation is you take the amount on Ramadan first. Right? That's the safer way to do it because of the nature of the way cash flow is for us. You can exclude lump sums, but everything else you just take at the end of the year or the beginning of the new lunar year. Sister, yes.
So just to sort of clarify what you said, so this takes the place of doing it this way, takes the place of sort of looking at how much money has sat within the lunar year. You just calculate it every year at the same, every lunar year at the same time.
Correct. Excluding the lump sum, right? Like a big.
And you treat those, so do you look at, so you calculate each of those lump sums a year from when you bought them? So
Correct.
you have running sort of,
Zakat due during the
zakat
year.
due depending.
Correct. Yes.
So
Because
like if you got a tax refund or something like that.
so a tax refund wouldn't maybe mashallah, maybe you get a lump sum of tax refund that's really big. I'm assuming it's like a large amount. Say you sold a car, right, and you got $30,000 in your account, or you sold a house,
Okay, so
right?
not things like tax, so something unusual.
Something unusually big, right? The marker is it's bigger than your paycheck, right? Like by quite a bit, right? If the paycheck and your tax return are like similar, I mean it's just like a salary, right? But amount that like you sold your house, or you sold like a car, or you sold something that was really valuable, okay? And then all that money came at a point. It's not fair to say let's just lump all of it together and just pay zakat.
And then one other, I think for the confusion about deducting, and I think deducting sort of upcoming bills that might be coming up.
Yeah.
It's because, just I think for the brother that wasn't sure.
Yeah.
That's, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's
Sure.
because that money will be deducted from your account, so that's why you factor that in, right?
So
Because
it's
your balance
so
will not be.
so you pay for hydro in May, but you used it in April.
So because it's coming up and you haven't paid it yet and it's a previous expense incurred, that's why you.
It's because it's the previous lunar year. That's why. That's the only way. Because if it was like pay per use, you would have paid it already, and then you would have less money in your account to pay zakat. That's the whole idea, right? But
It's
but
reflected in your bank account.
correct, correct. Alhamdulillah. All right, inshallah. Other questions? If you want the spreadsheet, right? Okay, inshallah. What I'll do is I'll collect all your emails here, inshallah. If you don't mind, just to make my life a little easier, if you can just type your email here in the computer and just press enter. So I'll email you the spreadsheet, inshallah ta'ala, and that way you can do the calculation quicker, inshallah. That basically is our presentation. Jazakumullah khairan for sticking out to the end. I know it was quite involved, but I told you we will be involved at the very beginning. Alhamdulillah. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka. Jazakumullah khairan. Can I email back and forth to you?